Good evening. So, honestly, I mainly feel what I feel right now is mainly that I miss my daughters, and I'm really sad. And it's getting worse every day. It's a weight that is accumulating over you. It's the feeling of I just kind of like a failure because I fought so hard like to raise them, and I have raised them in joint custody, and it was so difficult because I was under a constant attack of the state all the time, and eventually they had their way and they took them from me, and I haven't seen them like for a year now, just in WhatsApp, WhatsApp video. This is such a pain. And there were some times that I thought to myself, maybe I kind of like I had like the sin of vanity in the fact that I didn't do everything that I could have done, like to stop it. Like, didn't humiliate myself to the maximum extent that presumably perhaps would have prevented this outcome. But on the same time, I always learn more and more. But like the reality of both, the titan subjugations and also my own daughters, and how can I continue? And it was already a problem that I discussed in this channel that 2 years ago, that I need to it was joint custody, and so I brought them to school on the days that after they slept in my apartment. My apartment was their home. They had two homes, and so I need to bring them in the morning to 8 o'clock to the school, and while I know that this school is used to implant psychological conditioning on them. It's done by their teachers that will be used throughout their lives in order to control them and to subjugate them. And that's what people are doing to me all day, every day, and they all day, every day. And the fact that maybe you understand that because it doesn't work on me, it only prompts everybody to do it all the time. The fact that it doesn't work, it doesn't tell him, so okay, maybe we'll try something else, or maybe he's not what we think he is, or maybe maybe being Nazis is wrong. No. The fact that it doesn't work, is kind of like a catalyst that everybody will do it all the time, without stop. So I understood that that's the way to control people, and I understood that it's starting in school, and so I need to bring him to school, so they will be conditioned by the teacher to these things. But if I don't bring him to school, very quickly the social workers will take the custody, which eventually will happen, and I won't see them. So what can you do? What can you do? You take your children to school where they are tortured, and that they are planted with psychological triggers that throughout their life will be used by people to abuse them. And you actually take them, you prepare sandwiches, and you wake up early, and you help them, to choose, what to wear, and take everything that is needed, and drive them to school, and kiss them, good day, and they are now entering a factory for slaves. And you understand how it's done, and you actually get to know even the people, like the Nazi criminals. This is not something theoretical. This was my life. Up until a year ago, when they were taken from me. The school it's a real. This is real. The city is Shoam in Israel. The school is Nitzanim, but of course there are many other schools and many other cities in Israel. Just to say that. And the teacher that actually. The Hebrew teacher, the main teacher, Mechanechet, as they say in Hebrew, of my younger daughter Ilah, while she was in first grade, now she's in second grade. So she actually was replaced, between first and second grade. She actually were one of the neighbors where we lived, in 41 Emek Ayalon Street. So, she watched this Angel, I mean, grew up from the age of 2 to 6, and when she was 6, she became her teacher. And this neighbor, Eliras Sadeh, she was one of the heads that was paid by the CIA to protect me and my children. And she was one of the people that operated what they call the oven. The oven, you know what's an oven? And they are so audacious as to speak about it like plainly in front of me because they knew that I can't do anything at all about it. So they were, I mean, look, I mean, how satanic they were. That actually to speak about it was like, I mean, in front of me, like, it's a torture device that was placed in the apartment that is used to torture both me and my children. I'm not exactly sure how it works. Yes, it creates some kind of a heating like sensation, but I don't think it's really heat. I expect it's something with electromagnetism. But this is very general. But what does it matter? Why does it matter? I mean, she operated the oven on my children and on Ila since she was 2 until she was 6. And when she was 6, she became her teacher in 1st grade. And I knew all of that. So you said to yourself, what can you do? What can you do? But if I cannot, I mean, I'm like divorced parent, and my ex-wife is a slave of the Shabak. So initially I'm having like, I mean, shared custody with the Shabak. And I mean, everything that if I will not bring to school, I mean, I will lose custody, and they will never see me. That's actually what happened. And I didn't see him like for close to a year now. But after that, I discovered that they actually, I mean, abuse them. Even like, I mean, they take their immune system from them. And this is, I mean, and it explains also like, I mean, peculiar health issues that both of my children had, and they shouldn't have it, and they had it, and they still do. And it's explained it because they are doing it to children and toddlers, even toddlers. It happens right now. It's not ancient history. It's not like stories, but I know the 50s. It's right now. Shoam, like a very, I mean, it's like, I mean, a well-off town in the center of Israel. 9 out of 10 in like socio-economical ranking in Israel. And it's known, I mean, that it's kind of the best characteristics is the education, that they excel in education, that they are kind of, I mean, it's a great place to raise children because the schools are so great. I mean, this is a known fact in Israel. A known fact. It is less known that, I mean, in the schools, I mean, the teachers are Nazi criminals, both inside the class and outside of the class. So what can you do? So after, I mean, I know when taking this into account, I said, look, tell myself, I mean, I couldn't keep playing the game. Like, I mean, what? I mean, so I will also need, like, I mean, now, like, to bring my children and hand in hand to the people that actually, like, I mean, take their immune system from them and put germs, like their own germs, in their bodies. What's something that they also do, and they do to me all the time. And this is actually. And I do not know if my children, I mean, they have the same, like, Kerubian properties that I have. I actually suspect that they do not. That they are more like Titans. Which means that, and we know that, I mean, the Titans usually die in Israel because they do to them. My brother died, but I mean, many died. Many just died. At a very young age. And these creatures, I mean, potentially can live to many hundreds of years. Their lifespan is much longer than that of humans, but they live very short life because of these things that are already happening to my daughters. So what can you do? I do not know what I can do. I do not know. I want to tell to I feel very, very, very bad, but I mean, I want, like, I mean, to continue this video and to take the opportunity to mention one thing that I mentioned in the past, but I'll do it now more kind of like elaborately or explicitly. maybe, like it's a change, like, dramatic change of tone. We'll speak about presumably science fiction, but it's not a change of tone. It's the same issue. It's the same issue. By the way, we never know what people can actually find interesting. Like, presumably, people like, were, hyped about the story of, like, it wasn't even a story, just, very short anecdote regarding, the Nintendo, peace process, like, it wasn't even a story, and, like, people were extremely, surprised by it. So, either that, that the people involved are, mostly the father, the son was 10 years old, so, either the father is kind of, like, is more important than I thought, like, I thought that he was intelligent, like, there were all sorts of things about him that, suggested it relates, that is heavily related to the intelligence community, not specifically of Israel. And so I thought about it, even like many, I didn't, when I knew him, I was a child, like, or mostly teenager, like, and like, in this time, and even later, I was totally, didn't think about anything that regard to, it was a completely different time from, before the age of 35, I never thought about these things too much, and, and we speak about much before that, but, even just for a layman, there was all sorts of things about him that suggested that he belonged to the intelligence community, like, and, probably American, but I'm not certain. I should say, they are pretty, not super rich, but they were pretty, yeah, he was like, they had money, like, it's the same street where the former prime minister lives, like, what's his name? The asshole, like, the bald asshole, what was his name? Bennett. So, I don't know, so either that there is something special about him that or maybe just, people, are kind of like, amused by the fact that I was actually a child that played the Nintendo and, like, had friends and got, like, advices, or kind of like, moral lessons from adults. So yes, I am a human being, like, a person like you, and I had the childhood, like, and I had good days and bad days, and, yeah, I was not born on a bayou, and I was not teleported from another planet. I was born on Earth. And of course, the circumstances of my birth were accepted by everybody to be miraculous, because otherwise, why is as I said, why do you play this sick game of, is this a clone or not? They played for 40 years. It's 40 years that they played the game. It's unbelievably stupid and cruel game that the Israelis are playing with other intelligence services. It's called, like, is that a clone or not? This is like a game that they play for 40 years and they are never tired of it. Is that a clone or not? Is that a clone or not? It's unbelievably stupid and cruel game, but certainly, there is like it presupposes that, that actually, there was kind of like original that sometime existed in Earth, like, and probably it was related to a miraculous birth. Because, I remember my life pretty well, like, I remember, like, I should say that besides my birth, like, I think that I remember all the important events that happened throughout my life. That's what I think. Like, I don't think that there was, like, an important event in my life besides the birth that I do not remember. And none of those events, were, pretty remarkable. Certainly not to a point that, everybody will always ask, are you a clone or not? So it's probably related to the birth. Just, by elimination. So you agree that it was something, like, very important, like Jesus, like, seeing. But, after that, you kind of, you don't agree on anything at all, even though, yeah, I grew up in Tel Aviv. Everybody, it's a normal childhood, like, this is stupid. That's stupidity. The Americans knew everything about me all my life. This is stupidity. Is he like that or is he another? This is so stupid. They knew everything that there is to know. I was totally normative, heterosexual, I mean, you know, like a good boy. I mean, but not entirely nerdish, but kind of nerdish. But I mean, of course, very intellectual and curious. I mean, it's like, I mean, there are no secrets. I mean, and this was like, I mean, my life was nothing secretive about it. So you ask them, so you ask, how is it possible then that so many people in Israel that presumably knew you or said that they knew you, I mean, tell us such an incredulous story? Do you say that all of them are liars? So my answer is very simple. Y-E-S. This is the answer. They are all liars. Yes, I mean, what? Yes. I mean, any additional word will only diminish the truthfulness of the answer. The answer is yes. I have nothing to say more. I mean, yes, they are all liars. What do you want to say? Yes, they are all liars. Yes, they are all liars. Yes, they are all liars. And you know what's interesting about it? And I've written about it many years ago, like 4.5 years ago, at the beginning of this journey. Presumably, it's kind of like, I mean, incredible, I mean, something to understand or to believe that they are all liars, but it's actually very easy, because there was such a huge distance between reality and the stories, and it's enough to find that one is lying in order to know that there is like an interest of the Israeli intelligence to lie about me substantially. So their intelligence, because they all belong to the Israeli intelligence, otherwise they couldn't testify, I mean, on front of like other intelligence services. And if you find that one is lying, and this is incredibly easy, but I mean, you don't need like to be the CIA or KGB. You just, I mean, just watch the person on the street. Like, I mean, it's so easy to know that they like, to find that one is lying. So it's enough to find that one is lying to know that, I mean, why does he lie? Because the Israelis are telling him to lie. And I mean, yes, so they tell everybody else to lie. What's so complicated? No. So I mean, I really hope that, I mean, you find this story amusing, because I mean, it's such a short story. I mean, there is nothing, no narrative like in that. It's not like incredibly smart or something. I was just, I mean, I wanted to exemplify, like, you know, something, you know, totally, I mean, related, you know, completely unrelated. I mean, I hope that you find it amusing, because I don't know. Even though I don't think that actually the reason, but I mean, maybe like this Yossi Yerushalmi was, you know, famously was, you know, second hand to Yossi Maiman, like, yeah, also, I mean, in his youth he was like a chemistry professor, an interesting person, like I knew him since I was very young, and yeah, he was an interesting person. Like, I really liked like being in their house, like, I mean, and not only because they were rich, I mean, not at all, I mean, I really, I was very good friend with his son, and really appreciated him like as a person, and of course I also knew him as well, and they were very interesting like people, non-conventional. Like, I mean, the whole family was very non-conventional, and like most people that I knew like throughout my childhood was I mean, so conventional that you can almost puke. But I mean, I guess this is just the world. I mean, probably it's just like that. So. So I mean, because I mean, if there is nothing that's completely special about him, like from intelligence perspective, yeah. So yeah, no, and so they also vaccine Pennsylvania and later like Turkmenistan, and I mean the gas international gas gas lines that were enacted at the time, and all of it like smells like highly like related to intelligence things, like I mean, so, but I mean, it's not terribly interesting. I would say that, I mean, just to say that at the time and even now, these things are, I mean, I don't find it really interesting. It's just, I mean, the schools of this world that are spinning, whatever. I mean, it's not because of these things or because of the fact that they were rich that I liked like to be in their place, because they were interesting people. They were all like, I mean, like the whole family were kind of like, I mean, like the three brothers, like, I mean, they were kind of like, I mean, but this was made mostly true to the older one, like to Arya, that was a good friend of mine. That it was kind of like, I mean, my feeling was that, I mean, I always thought of myself that, I mean, not always, but it was very something, I mean, prominent in my childhood that, I mean, that I saw that, I mean, kind of like, I mean, that we don't even have enough money, so I mean, so maybe, I mean, if I would, like, I would have, like, had, I mean, like, also like options, I mean, or kind of like, I mean, ways to develop that, I mean, they presumably I didn't, because we weren't poor, but I mean, we, like, after my parents, when they were married, I mean, they decided to live in Ramat Aviv Gimel, which was at the time, it was kind of like, I mean, of many projects in Israel that, I mean, like Shoam and many others that, I mean, new neighborhoods or even towns that are built, and I mean, with special kind of like, I mean, the emphasis on the security and the intelligence sector. So I mean, it's a way to give them privileges. It's a totalitarian country. The free market is just, I mean, you know, it's a hoax. So I mean, it's a way to give them, you know, perks. So I mean, so they sell them, like, you know, apartments at this new neighborhood, like, I mean, in like, I mean, very good prices. This was true in Shoam, it was true in the Ramat Aviv Gimel. But what happened in the Ramat Aviv Gimel is that, I mean, it became a symbol of like rich people, but it wasn't always like that. I mean, after some time, so they kind of like find themselves, like, I mean, you know, in a society that is totally, like, I mean, too rich for them, like, I mean, because they were never, like, my parents were never rich, and they were not materialistic, like, I mean, like, they didn't even want to be rich, and when they divorced, more, of course, I mean, I grew up mostly with my mother. I mean, I've seen my father, you know, visitation, but I mean, mostly with my mother, and she decided that she wants to stay in Ramat Aviv Gimel, but later to Ramat Aviv, like what they call Ramat Aviv Yeshana, which is a little, of course, less, I mean, lucrative than Ramat Aviv Gimel, but still, and I mean, regarded as a high society, and like, I mean, and she spent like a huge amount, like, I mean, of her assets, like, for that purpose, like, and she had good reasons. It was actually, I mean, it was a smart decision, but I mean, we found ourselves, like, me and my brothers, like, I mean, with like friends, and like, I mean, you know, people like in school, and that many of them were much richer than us, like, substantially. Like, generally, I mean, throughout my early life, I was the poorest of the people that I know, but I mean, I was not poor, like, I mean, in absolute terms. It's just, I mean, it was Ramat Aviv Gimel, so I mean, it's like, you know. Anyway, Ari, I always thought about him that he has like the opposite problem. That he had too much. I mean, he was very smart, and like they had a ton of money, and like his parents always bought him like everything that he wanted. And he was kind of like, I mean, and he was very, very smart and talented, and kind of like, I mean, very early in his life, he's kind of, it seems that, I mean, he just, I mean, lost motivation. Like, I mean, he had like, I mean, ongoing crisis of motivation. But sometimes these people are very interesting, actually, even though it doesn't, like, I mean, it doesn't, I mean, it's not like, I mean, like, it doesn't predict good things for these people usually. And I mean, the last I checked, it was actually several good years ago. I'm not in touch with him since long ago, but the last I checked, I mean, both he and his brother and his sister, I mean, seems that they went like in the predictable and not a very happy path of people that, I mean, were not just, I mean, were both spoiled and intelligent and talented, but I mean, they just, I mean, they went, you know, in I would say, it seems to me, certainly him, but also probably his brother and sister, but certainly him, like, he went in a predictable direction of, you know, drugs and drugs and rehabilitation and drugs. But I don't think that that's the reason why you find it so interesting. I think that, I mean, you were amused by the fact that I was actually a child. Yes, I was a child. I was a cute child. Let's discuss science fiction a little bit. So a while ago, I discussed my origin story in a saga that I call it the Ziggurat of Ur, which which is, it's non-linear and kind of like, convoluted, but because that's the way it is. And part of it was, so I decided that at some point, I'm not sure that it was like, that I knew that it's going to be like that, but at some point I decided that, it's part of this. I want to kind of like, to do like, like a spin-off series of the Three Sisters fairy tale, which is something that I had like a very strong divination about it, like a couple of years ago when in my travels in the south, specifically in Mitzvah Ramon, like these were very spiritual times for me, and at that time I articulated like this story. I say articulated because I cannot really say, it's an original story. You cannot find like equivalent to it like in the world literature. It's not like a retelling of other legends, but certainly there are also like elements that you can find like relatable, and some are explicitly so, like on purpose. And the important thing is to understand that this is a true story. Like of course, it's like, and in about half of it, like after 3 chapters, it should be like something like 6 chapters, like an hour each, and I had like a very, very strong, very bad, like crisis of motivation to continue to speak about it, and I've already told you why, but I would say, I will tell it again because I think it's incredibly important right now to tell you why. I should just say that, yes, this is an important story and interesting story, and of course it's dramatized. Like I almost everything that I say is dramatized because this is my inclination. I have a strong inclination like to literature, and so it's dramatized. Like it's not like of course it contains all sorts of like dramatic elements, and there are more of so like all sorts of other we are still just in the middle, and like we cover like the I would say the first half, which is important, but like less with much less action, I would say. So at some point I decided that I cannot speak about it. Like I don't have any motivation to speak about it, but I decided, people like, flooded me with questions about it for so long. It was kind of like, everybody spoke about it, like, in the intelligence channels, and so I decided actually to spoil it for you, like, just to give you spoilers. So I kind of like spoiled it for you, because, I decided, okay, let's just, tell you some kind of key points from, like, the second half, but still there is much to be said. The main spoiler, I will repeat the spoiler, is that maybe you like listen to the first half, like the 3 hours, like first half, but didn't get the spoiler. But so you can just stop the video now if you don't want to get the spoiler. But the main spoiler is that these people are not Venusians. They are Martians, and there are actually many clues to it. Like like dispersed throughout like the 3 episodes. It's important for me right now to explain why I had this crisis of motivation, because it's still going on. I don't feel any inclination to speak about it, even though I do speak about other things, as you see, and conduct experiments. But I kind of like, I had such a huge drop in motivation to speak about this, this, even though I like drama, like, it's kind of, for me it was kind of like, this excuse, like, to venture into, like, like, to the dramatic presentation, which I have this inclination, and I've written about, like, things like that in the past, so it actually, it's kind of, presumably it should be fun for me, but it wasn't. Only initially so, but, I tell you the problem. The problem, and I said it already, but I mean it should be said again because it's incredibly relevant to what we actually see right now in Israel. I sensed that the Titans were kind of like, I mean, were mostly very, interested in the story, and even some were very emotional, and this is to be expected. And this is the main reason for the existence of this story. Like, I mean, to give the Titans, I mean, to like information regarding the past that, I mean, relates to them, like in very important way. And as I said many times, I mean, specifically in light of the fact that such a huge part of the subjugation also the 20th century and the 21st century was to deny them of knowledge about their nature, and even to deny the nature, and to tell things that are absolutely stupid, like, I mean, to a point that to say that they are not even like born, like, I mean, that there are no females and males, and this, I mean, this is torment. I mean, a psychological torment. I mean, the people will tell you that, I mean, you're a robot that was created like from, and like, I don't know, inanimate material, that, I mean, that there are no males and females and you can change your sex to whatever. This is so wrong, and it was known to be wrong in Israel for many decades. And again, they weren't good, they were cruel, even more than now, but I mean, and they were so cool in Israel, but I mean, during the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, up until, like, the purge that happened during the 1980s. And of course, they're always cool, but I mean, at least during these decades, I mean, they didn't, like, I mean, what kind of a cruelty to tell people that, I mean, they were not born at all, or that they are not males and females, to deny them of their essence and the sexuality, or, I mean, identity. So much cruelties. So many cruelties. So this was, I mean, the main reason, but what really discouraged me tremendously is the fact that I understood that for many people, like probably most Titans and Homo sapienses, this story is kind of like, I mean, is important because presumably it gives you like a truthful or somewhat truthful account of what we call in futurism. I mean, they don't, most people do not like know the terminology, but I mean, they understand it the same way. It's called late great filter. Late great filter. In futurism and science fiction, late great filter. So it's a truthful account for late great filter. And now, why is this concept important? So I can give you, like, I mean, the formal, or like, I mean, the rigorous explanation, but this is kind of, you don't need to understand to ever hear about it in order to intuitively understand it. So many people intuitively understood it, and that's why, I mean, and it became very important for them, and it discouraged me tremendously. Like, the intuition is to say, this is like, I mean, an example of an advanced civilization, more advanced than us, like humans. Presumably you are advanced, even though you are not, but you think that you are. So this is an example of people that are more advanced than you, but they are no longer with us, which is not entirely correct for all sorts of reasons. But I mean, it's complicated. It's very complicated. But yes, I mean, I mean, essentially, it's like, I mean, it's like, it's like the prophecy of Isaiah, like, I mean, of Edom, like, I mean, and Lilith, that, I mean, that is alone among the satyrs and cries to the satyrs, and this is something like that. And that the land is completely ruined, completely ruined. it's not true that they all died or stopped existing, and what actually happened is more complicated. But yes, the place is, you know, Sair el Re'eu Ikra, you know. So people want to ask, I mean, like what happened so we can know, like, so maybe tell us so we will know how to avoid it, because it's called late great filter, because presumably for life to evolve, like presumably they must evolve, which is not true, but presumably there are many presumablies here, because humans don't know anything about the universe, so they are having, everything is presumably. So presumably, I mean, in order to become like, I mean, like a space-faring civilization, like a civilization that is like went to space and left their own world, I mean, like, you know, to conquer the stars, there are all sorts of, like, I mean, tests or, like, I mean, hurdles that you need to pass, and these are called filters, because they're filter civilizations. And the first one are very early, like, I mean, you need like to, like, you know, to be in a planet, and the planet should contain water, which is not true, and the planet should be have like a certain like range of temperature, which is not true, and the planet should, I mean, every filter that is known to humans, that they think that they know, is actually not true. Like everything is untrue, like, I mean, but I mean the general, I mean, the science behind it is completely wrong, because humans don't understand the phenomenon of life at all. Like, they don't know anything about life. Humans don't know anything about life. Every conception that you have about life is wrong. And I dare to say most of it was demonstrated, I mean, proven to be wrong in this room, in a scientific way. So many, I mean, false, like, I mean, but this is not my issue, because I want to speak about ethics, not about, like, I mean, science. You understand that it's not like what in on my mind right now. So the problem is not science or science fiction. The problem is ethics. And interestingly, it's never something that, I mean, it was counted like as a filter. Just to say, I mean, so early filters presumably, I mean, are something that, I mean, relates to, I mean, it's subjective. So early is a thing that presumably relates to civilization that is in technological state that is earlier than humans now, and late are ones that occur after this. I mean, the division between late and earlier is like, I mean, according to what is the current like phase of humans. And the ones that are most frightening for people, and again, this is like a formal definition of futurist and science people of, like, from the science fiction like a world, but I mean, it's intuitively like that in the minds of many people. So that's why I've seen so many comments on this regard. So the idea is that the late filters are very scary, because presumably you're already past like the early like filters. Like, yes, I mean, you had, like, I mean, yes, you have, like, you know, water that are presumably required, not true, and I mean, you know, and this kind of range of temperature that is required, not true, and this kind of pressure that is needed, not true, and this kind of, like, I mean, like magnetosphere that is required, which is not true, and this kind of, like, I mean, you know, atmosphere protection, you know, from, like, I mean, cosmic rays that is needed, which is not true. I mean, and you know, and there's like a ton of carbon here, which is, I mean, essential, because I mean, this is the building block of life, which is not true. And, like, I mean, so yes, so everything is predicated on false science, but the thought is important, because people say you don't need to be a scientist to just fear, like, I mean, to fear, like, I mean, the future, like, I mean, to say, I mean, so what can happen, like, I mean, what can actually happen, like, so because it can happen to us, and we don't want it to happen to us. We don't want to you know, we don't want it to be like, you know, like the prophecy of Edom, like, you know, the Zephet, I mean, you know, like, I mean, I don't remember the translation, like, you know, that like the desert with, like, you know, boiling, like, black tar, I mean, tar pits, and you know, the satyrs, like the Sairim, you know, that are just, I mean, alone and crying, I mean, calling one to each other, and Lilith, which is probably a bird, but I mean, can also interpret, I mean, as a humanoid creature that, I mean, is alone in there, is alone, I mean, just, I mean, sits there alone in this place, like, I mean, for maybe forever, like, I mean, after the destruction of the land by their own people, mostly by the rulers, but I mean, the ruler and the people, they are mostly the same. So they destroyed their own land. Of course, because of their vanity. I don't remember the chapter in Isaiah. Anyway. So they ask, I mean, how to avoid it? So you can ask, so and this like kind of, I mean, it discouraged me so much because, and you can ask why, I mean, isn't it natural? I mean, what's the problem? But I was so devastated by kind of like, I mean, all these comments that I lost any interest to speak about it. Because, I mean, how stupid and how blind people can be. Like, you are in the middle of a great filter right now. And I'm speaking about it all the time, like for years. I mean, I speak about the great filter that is, you actually in the middle of a great filter. You are about to be filtered, all of you. Because of the worst kind of crisis, which is crisis in ethics. Like, the real question that you need to ask is not what happened to a race of sentient aliens millions of years ago. Even though it's interesting and they are actually your relatives. And also relatives of the Venusians. So this is important, but it's not an important question at all with regards to the question of what should you do if you want to survive. What you need to ask is entirely different question. First of all, you need to ask yourself, how is it possible that in Israel, during the 20th century, all through the 20th century, there existed and still exists and developed a society that is cruel beyond any imagination. Cruel beyond any imagination. That the cruel thing that they are doing and they've done, that they're still doing, are beyond imagination. And they do it while they presumably support, you know, progressive values, LGBTQ, diversity, all that jazz, while they eat young children in the street with full protection of the law. And they rape people without any prejudice and no problem. How is that came to be? And more so, how is it that all the strong nations of the world, and no, most of all the United States and other nations that are European and presumably, I mean, support such progressive values, how is it possible that they know about things that are going on for several decades and they are fine with that? How is it possible that there is such a discrepancy between what humans are actually doing and what they tell that, I mean, themselves, like, that they are doing? How is such a discrepancy between your actions and your declared values exist? This is the great filter, not the Three Sisters fairy tale. No, you can learn that from this story, and it's interesting. And it's got, like, as I said, like, you know, like even like a parts with action, unlike the first half. The second half is, you know, is more like action oriented. So you can learn a lot, but I mean, this is, I mean, if you want to know what to do in order to survive, this is not the question like what happened to them a million years ago. The question is, how is it possible that humans, and not like, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, you know, one accident, you know, like one like specific occurrence that, I mean, you can say that it's kind of like, I mean, you know, rare mass psychosis or rare occurrence. No, it's like a consistent history throughout the 20th century, in the 21st century, consistent history of unbelievable cruelty and abuse, while at the same time, I mean, the mouths and the tongues, I mean, keep singing about values and, you know, liberal, LGBTQ, liberal, progressive, while, I mean, while they're eating the children. I mean, their teeth is full of flesh. Their mouth is dripping blood of children that they eat. And they speak to you about LGBTQ? What the fuck happened? How is it possible? This is the great filter. Don't you understand? This is the great filter. You don't need the presence of the cherubs in order to understand that this is a great filter. You don't need the presence of like another sentient species that is far more advanced and take the role of the policeman and punishes you. Even though it happened many times during the 20th century, so I mean, by now you should have like understood it already. But even if they did not exist by itself, from the point of view of organic development of cultures, this is a great filter because this cannot kept forever. Such an inconsistency between what people actually do and what they tell themselves that they do cannot, exist for, indefinitely. At some point, this, if there weren't cherubs to stop it, like as foreign, like an external force, at some point, this would, inevitably lead to a crisis of values that will certainly, develop to wars all around the globe. Because people will understand, all around the globe will understand, because eventually the truth will find a way to get to the people. You cannot actually keep the truth forever, like hidden from the people, especially since, it's not that difficult to get to Venus without the gates, without the solar gates. It's very close. Very soon it will be, you cannot, very soon, it's inevitable that people will just, went there because, you are not far from, like, you're not far at all, from a technology level that will be, that people will be able to send probes by themselves from Earth to Venus. So people would do it. At least some people will do it, and they would say, hey, the measurements are completely wrong. So what happens? And that's the end of the conspiracy, and it's not far away. This is the, when it's the closest to Earth, it's at that time it's actually the closest to Earth of all. It's minimal distance from Earth. It's the minimal distance of any other planet. The average distance is actually, the minimal is that of Mercury, because of, the way that orbital mechanics works. But it's very close, and there is no, and sending probes. Some people will, if according to the natural, development of technology, people could have, it's not going to happen because you will be destroyed by the cherubs. But even if there were no cherubs, very soon people would, according to the, natural development of technology, people would send probes to Venus by themselves without any permission of anybody. It's not like science fiction. It's maybe 10, 20 years from now. So the conspiracy will die. So, and what will happen is that people will discover that whatever they speak about, but the morality is completely not what they do. So they will say, the next, step is to say, okay, so why should, why should, the royal family in Jordan or the scumbags in Israel or the Americans, enjoy this kind of, cannibalism? We want, our own flesh, share of this flesh. And, don't lecture us because, we know exactly what you do, so, don't ever lecture us. Anyone should never lecture anybody again after this is discovered. And from that point, wars are inevitable all around the globe. This is inevitable. It's because the existence of the cherubs, it will not happen because they will destroy all of you before that. But if there were no cherubs, inevitably this would have ended in tremendous amount of wars and a crisis of values where people will not want anyone to ever reality to them about any kind of values, because they will say, you've lied to us throughout the 20th century and the 21st century. Well, and the reality is that might makes right, and justice is just the interest of the strongest person, and so shut the fuck up, and from now on, it's everybody will just eat the other person, and and because that presumably was the way that always things were, and we don't want to hear any lectures from these people that this white race that lectured us for so long while they committed these cruelties, unimaginable cruelties. And then there will be, there will be wars. And then there will be wars. And then there will, and this is the great filter. This is the great filter, an unbelievable gap between expressed morality and actual behavior. This is the great filter. And it's not the great filters of the Martians. I'll tell you right now. What happens there is a war. As I said, this was apocalypse of the type of war. I already said it. It's not a spoiler. And this is kind of like, I mean, you know, it's foreshadowed by, I mean, the names of the two major protagonists. So, yes. Very, very sad war. But you cannot find, like, I mean, easy, like, I mean, it's not easy to I mean, the story doesn't easily lend itself to metaphorical interpretations with regards to the state of humans today. I mean, everyone can, you know, find metaphors, like, I mean, you know, whatever, however they want, but not easily. Like, I mean, it's not intended to be like that. No. I mean, certainly you can learn lots of stuff from it, but I mean, it's not like where you stand now. And I never intended it, like, I mean, to be like, I mean, you know, like a parable to humanity now. No, my intention was to convey truth, like, I mean, mostly for the Titans, because this is, again, it's dramatized story, but I mean, it's in essence, it's true. I mean, yes, I mean, the main point happened. This is his story. And this, I mean, this is like, was the incentive behind, like, I mean, this kind of, I mean, fairy tale, to convey truth, and not specifically to give you like a metaphor for a situation now. And it's so irritating. I mean, people, I mean, they seek like metaphors from literally a million years ago, instead of like watching, I mean, opening their eyes to what's happening right now. And I speak about it all the time. Like, I mean, this, I mean, for so long, every day. You are now in the middle of a great filter that is going to filter all of you. And this filter is of the type that is rarely discussed by futurists and science fiction authors, but it's actually the worst kind of filter, and a very common filter among sentient races, sentient species. It is called the ethical filter. Ethical filter. And this happens when there is a tremendous gap that is found between what people actually, how people behave and what they say. And this leads to a crisis that inevitably leads to wars. This is the great filter. I said it many times, I said it again, every rational analysis of a situation, and it was like that even 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, like, I spoke like with God, you know, meditated like many times, like, you know, in the, like you know, in like traveling in Israel, like, you know, remote, relatively. There aren't many strictly remote places in Israel because it's so small, but I mean, relatively remote places. So, you know, I kind of like, I mean, I kind of like spoke with God, and I remember saying, I mean, rational, I mean, analysis of the situation. I mean, and I didn't say it lightly then, and I don't say it lightly now. All my life I consider myself human, but and of course, like, I mean, I have great empathy towards humans. I'm much more than any other cube, for certain. I mean, you can be sure that any other member of my species, I mean, have so less empathy towards you than I am. Like, I mean, without comparison at all. So, I mean, with all this empathy and like, I mean, kind of like shreds of optimism, I kind of like, I mean, I kind of like meditated and prayed, like, and I remember saying, you know, Father in the sky, rational analysis of the situation, I mean, forces us to admit that humanity is a failure, and that they have no good, like, I mean, they have no path to a prospering future. Like, they will not be able to leave their planets and like to find other inhabitable worlds or moons, and they will not meet with other species, even though There are a tremendous amount of life in this universe, including, of course, sentient and intelligent life, and faster than light travel exists. And there are so many more things like that you do not discover. Like, I mean, the universe is huge, and I mean, if humanity were not bad to the bone, they would have like tremendous amount of things to actually discover in this universe. Like, I mean, whatever you think about that you already discovered is just, I mean, you know, the tip of the iceberg. I said because some people think that, I mean, science is kind of like a done, like, I mean, done project. Yes, you presumably there is nothing more to kind of discover. No, there, I mean, not at all. There are so many, like, you know, physical revolutions, like, I mean, or like along the way, like, I mean, so many, I mean, new conceptualization, new paradigms, completely, of course, sentient creatures, faster than light travel, but you will not be, you cannot do it. You cannot take place in that, because we will not allow you, because predatory species are not allowed to do it. They are just not allowed, because the older ancient races, species, they don't want, I mean, the universe to crumble, to, you know, you wouldn't want it as well. I mean, if there were no, like, I mean, ancient species that, I mean, that protects the universe from this possibility of people like you that, I mean, will go and conquer the stars, humanity couldn't have, like, I mean, developed at all. Because for certain, I mean, one of the predator races were, I mean, arrived in Earth long ago, and they were, or either they ate you or enslave you or just delete you from existence. The fact that you had, like, in, you know, your time and kind of, you know, your own place without, like, you know, like, I mean, intervention of predatory species from outer space, like, to develop, was due to the fact that there were ancient species that guarded you. So the same species will guard like the universe from you. I don't see any kind of possibility that humans will ever leave their planet, and most certainly they will not survive at all, because this is a failure, and there are no kind of, like, I mean, there is no salvation, because, I mean, you already had all the, you know, that's the problem, that you already had all the revolutions, you know, the social rights, you know, the civil rights revolution, the, you know, feminism, and, you know, and black rights, and, I mean, so, and so you've already had, like, I mean, all the lessons, you've already went through the lessons, so there is nothing to teach you, and you decide to be cannibals and rapists of children, and, I mean, unbelievable cruelty. And not to say, even to start speaking about the psychological terror, the thing that I go through unimaginable psychological cruelty that is unheard of in the history of humanity, and other Titans are going through the same thing. People force them to cut their genitals, to give it to them to eat. People force them to change their sex. People force them, like, I mean, to be slaves, and they infect them with disease, unbelievable torment, and they treat them as more than animals, and this is day-to-day life in Israel for a long time, and still today, and of course supported by the Americans, and used by the Americans, and other nations know about it very well, specifically European strong ones. We don't have anything to teach you. I mean, we taught you, the cherubs taught you a lot, I mean, throughout the ways. In the least possible, like, I mean, paternalistic way, which means that, I mean, they did not, like, I mean, you know, visit you, like, to give you lessons, but, I mean, the ones that were, I mean, just, I mean, as like, representative, were, I mean, they just like me, like, they lived in Earth like humans, and they were part of society. It's not like, I mean, so this is the least paternalistic way that you can do it. And also, I mean, it makes sure that, I mean, the culture will develop, like, organically, like, I mean, from their own, like, I mean, you know, values and perspectives, and not, like, I mean, that, I mean, will be forced on you from above. Because, I mean, these cherubs, I mean, the people that wrote, like, the cherubs that wrote, like, parts of the Bible, for example, it's not that, like, I mean, they didn't, like, force, like, you know, foreign, like, text on you and translated that to your language. No, it wasn't like that. And it's also certainly, it wasn't like, I mean, that, I mean, they kind of, like, I mean, pushed, like, presumably legends that they do not believe, like, to you, so, I mean, like, from like a like from a paternalistic perspective, like presumably, so I mean, because your children that you should get like children like stories. No, the cherubs that I mean wrote, not only cherubs wrote the Bible. I mean, many people wrote, specifically the Old Testament. Also the New, but I mean, of course, most. I mean, the Old Testament was written by many people. It's like, I mean, everybody agreed on it. I mean, even everybody agreed on it. Whenever you are kind of from Orthodox Jewish perspective, or Christian perspective, or like or like textual analysis, like scholarly, philological perspective. I mean, of course, many people wrote the Bible, and some of them were cherubs, and they believed everything. I mean, they believed that. I mean, for them it was like the word of God. Like it was. And this is the least paternalistic way to do it. So they were already here. They had, I mean, at that point, the reality is that there is not much to teach you. You should just be imprisoned to where you are without any ability to even think of getting out. And of course, the gate should not be used because, I mean, this is horrible. And you shouldn't be allowed to discover, faster than light travel, or even like non-faster than light but advanced propulsion, like a rocket technologies. And there are so many easy ways to ensure that it will not happen. Like from the cherubs, they just need to press a button, and you, for that, so you will not be able to, so this condition will be fulfilled to you. You will not be able to discover faster than light travel and advanced propulsion system and things like that. It's incredibly easy. And this is like the minimal kind of thing that should be done with you. Like the minimal, with minimum severity, and the maximal is complete annihilation. And from a rational analysis point of view, this is like a nice piece of real estate, the Earth. So it makes sense to that like better species than you will actually inhabit it. Perhaps people that will actually be able to reach to the stars and join like other civilized species. And for that purpose, of course, they cannot coexist with you. You see, I cannot coexist with you. You just want to kill me all the time, and my mere presence, creates so much hatred. Even though people like eat me alive, never give anything in return, and at the same time they hate me so much. It's a fact. We cannot live together. You cannot coexist with another species. So, just the logical solution is to replace you as soon as possible and to start a new chapter. This is the logical solution.